Alright, so let's talk about where we are and where we want to be. So if I were to run this right now, we get our classic 8-queen solution. But what's nice about object-oriented programming, again, is that modular design. So we can switch out this show board for this guy. This is pretty nice. This is a nice representation of our 8 queens from before. So, right now what we have is our classic solution for 8 queens. These functions are all just minimized, but they shouldn't be any different from what you've been seeing before. Yeah, so don't touch any of this code. What we're interested in is all this new stuff up here. So, where is it? By the end of this, you should be able to fill in the blanks over here, but we're going to get to that later and what all of this means. So before we can move on with our project, we need to talk about a new concept called Typedef. So Typedef is pretty straightforward. It's repackaging old types into new ones. So if I said something like Typedef int, I don't know, that, I could say then a name, let's say x equals 5, and this would compile, this would run, this should just do cout x and l, and if I run this, yeah, just get 5. So what is it doing? This is just saying take int and just give it a new name for it. And whenever I see this, I should just know that this is an int. So if I say qwerx equals 5, this is just this type, which is again just this type. So this is just going to print out a 5. And there are some pretty interesting uses for this. I'll post another video in the description, but you don't have to worry about all the great uses for it. What we're concerned about right now is just creating a new type, so Typedef, and we're going to call it box. It's going to be 5x7 of type char. So when we're looking at, don't worry about this. So when we're looking at this piece of code over here, all this means is we're creating a new array of type char that's 5x7. So now that we have our new type box, we can initialize a couple things. Let's say we want to create a black space and a white space. This is just a 5x7. We can initialize black space to be something like this, or it's just going to be all spaces. White space is just going to be all equal signs. And then white space queen and black space queen. With a little imagination, you can draw this out yourself. But a lot of it's just busy work, so it's going to be in the template for you. So right now, if I run this, I just set up FancyPrints to demo all of these. Oh, whoops. Don't mind this. This is going to get to later. So this is just a nice demo of a white queen on a black space, black queen on a white space, black space, and white space. So I think the solutions to this should be pretty intuitive. It really should just be repackage this entire program, the 8 queens, into just using these pieces. But that actually becomes pretty wasteful, because I mean, this is a 5x7, so that's like 35, and then you have 35 of just these spaces, and then you have an 8x8, so 35 times 64 is some really big number. There's a simpler way of doing that out, and you probably saw the answer before, but I want you to try and think of like a solution right now. What can we do to make this easier on space? What can we do to make this lighter on space? So I'm guessing that you had a crack at it. Try to really think about what you did, and if you don't, pause the video, try to think a little more. But the idea is we want to, instead of creating a board of type box, what we're going to do is we're going to create a board of pointers to these boxes. And again, if we were just to create this, if we were just to create a board of boxes, that'd be perfectly fine. But it's not what we want to do, because it's going to be very wasteful in space. Alright, so now we have our first big challenge, which is where do we point to the right thing? Where is the correct place to point? And I want you to take like a good half minute to really think about how we're going to do this out. So I've assumed you had a pretty good go at it. Let's say, let's draw out our board. Imagine this is an 8x8. And now what I want to do is I want to say, say all of our things that we created before. So this is a black space, this is a white space, this is a black space, the white queen, and let's get rid of that. Then this is a white space with a black queen, and each one of these spaces is going to either point to one of those, one of these, or something like that. So a good place to start off with this is just to work with the black spaces and the white spaces. So with that in mind, this shouldn't be too hard. And again, if you feel any moments of inspiration where you think you got it, please feel free to pause this and see if you can work on it by yourself. But let's say we say all the rows are our I values, so we're using a double for loop at this point. So all of our rows are going to be numerated with I, all of our columns are going to be numerated with J. But we can do some clever, something clever. We can say, again, this is a double for loop. We can say I plus J mod 2 is going to get us what value should be here. So I mean, what does that mean? This is if we count 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. 0 plus 0 is just going to be the space. It's an even number. So what we're getting is we're getting evens and odds are different shades. So again, for example, I could say I plus j if it's even. I can point to a black space. I plus j if it's odd. I can point to a white space. This is getting a little confusing with the colors. So yeah, I plus j if it's even, point to a white space. I plus j if it's black, point to a black space. I think there's actual regulations when it comes to chessboards, like what starts off at the top left corner. So make sure you check that before you actually start assigning these. But I think the assignment should be pretty obvious. So again, if we start with just this, where we have all of the chessboard initialized to pointers of either black space or white space, the next part is going to be pretty easy.